political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, political fighters, and welcome to the July 23rd, 2026 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is our number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com and follow me on all the socials under Choose Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast. And, of course, you can catch those on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. There you can also get Choose Views featured interviews. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. It's The Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other great shows and interviews. And also in the evenings, The Politics Bar, The Matt McNeil Show, and The Gailey Show. Tomorrow, here on Choose Views, folks from The Politics Bar will be hanging out with us, Jody and Sean. And then Karen will be here, so it'll be kind of a fun day. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com because of the great work that we've got going on there and some of the articles that you guys can check into and like and share. Let's see what's sounding good today. Probably the biggest one of all is Ilhan Omar. Elections are not decided by the biggest check. They are decided by ordinary people like those of us in this room. They are decided by the people who show up. Let us show this country that organized people always beats organized money. What a great clip. What a great statement by Representative Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar. She has taken, since she became elected as an official, as a congresswoman, she takes hits all the time. I mean, that includes things as simple as people just question. I shouldn't say simple. People questioning her gender, people questioning her culture, people questioning the country that she came from, if she's a U.S. citizen, all these things. She even had last year, you guys may remember this, she was at a town hall speaking to the constituents. And Henry, some fool rolled up on her and sprayed some substance on her. They didn't know. I don't think they ever disclosed what it was, but he had like a squirt bottle and sprayed it on her. And she didn't retreat, and she didn't want to end the event, which was a packed room. She kept going. She's had all those things happen, and you know what's interesting about it? All those things that have happened did not come from people who. Let me put it this way. They came from people who say that, they're patriots and this is America, et cetera, all those other, words that oftentimes come from the right or sometimes some radical people in other parts of our political spectrum. All about attacking this woman and then literally attacking her. That's an attack to me, spraying something on someone like that. But she's held her head high and she's just kept on fighting. I think there's a lot of folks who are the stereotypical American, if you will, that, picket fence, 2 kids, 2 cars in the garage, and all the other things that we can label as a stereotypical American, particularly if we get into culture, that haven't done nearly the amount of hard work that she's done to not only represent her people in Minnesota, but this country at large. She's worked harder at maintaining dignity and clarity and making sure that we are all fighting for the democracy that we say we stand for than many people that would be considered the typical sort of white American patriot. Truth be known. And so when she says something like that in terms of we get to fight for our democracy and we get to show up united rather than, it being organized money, it's organized people. That's a non-born in the U.S. patriot. How about that? I just made up a new phrase. But there you go. You'll find that kind of great work over at heartlandsignal.com. So you want to make sure you're checking out all that we've got there. On today's show, I'll be joined here in studio by my good friend co-hosting the show with me today, Rico Mowatt. Can't wait to have him here. We'll be talking with guest Emily Williams, who's a host of the Webby Award-winning podcast Beyond Voting. So I'm looking forward to talking with her about a few things. And that'll be in the 6:30 hour. Rico will be with us for the rest of the show. At 7 o'clock, we'll be talking with Chicago Financial Future Task Force co-chairs Karen Freeman-Wilson, who's the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, and Jim Reynolds, who is the chairman and CEO of Loop Capital, one of Chicago's, if not the nation's, leading financial groups. Jim's a great guy, just a phenomenal person and a phenomenal business person. And then in studio with us in the 7:30 hour will be the president and founder of the Public Rights Project and Foundation, Jill Habig. Jill is one of those voices that's been with us before. And as you guys may know, she is one of those attorneys that's made it very clear that public rights and human rights work hand in hand, and you will not abuse either of those. So Jill will be with us in the 7:30 hour. So I'm looking forward to all of our guests as always, and we will keep you guys plugged in. And by all means, make sure to give us a call. Just because we don't always get you on doesn't mean we don't catch your thoughts or your comments, and we try to speak them on the air if we can't get you on the air. So never feel like calling is to no avail. But that's what's happening on today's show, and we're looking forward to having our guests plug in with us. Today's question of the day links itself back to what's happening in Maine, and we'll talk about this in a moment. But for now, the question of the day is, now that Troy Jackson seems to be the Democratic candidate in Maine, what are your thoughts? Will we win this seat and defeat Susan Collins? Or will we be still stuck in the same craziness with her yet again being concerned and troubled? Or will we find a new path? So the Democratic nominee now is Troy Jackson, and we want to hear from you guys to determine what your thoughts are. If he will be the one to win that Maine Senate seat, and are we going to be able to defeat Susan Collins? So send us a text at 773-763-9278, or call us, obviously. Lines are open. And you can certainly go to our Facebook page and send us a little message there to say, here are my thoughts on what's happening in Maine. And I saw a poll that, at this point, do we know if it's accurate? I guess it's relevant, but is it completely indicative of what will happen in November? And that's showing that Troy Jackson is somewhere in the range of 3 points ahead of Susan Collins. So as the pollsters would say, and others that follow the polling, that's within the margin of error. But at least he's not 3 points behind right now. He's 3 points ahead from what I've seen. So we'll see how that plays out. But let us know what you think, and we'll try to get your thoughts on the air regarding that. So, all right, guys, that's what's going on. We've got a few things that we'll be talking about today that our guests will help us chime in on. But one of the things, going back to our question, that I want to make sure I kind of give you this bit of information real quickly, is the reasoning behind that 3-point disparity with Troy Jackson and Susan Collins. And for some reason, finally, at least we hope, the potentially fatal mistake that Susan Collins has made for the majority of her career, certainly in the last 10 years, is that Maine voters are starting to say that they are tired of her being concerned and that she's consistently cozied up to Donald Trump. And then some people are saying that she is essentially lied to the voters in the state, because when she said it's not just a concerned and troubled sort of wording she's used when something has happened in the Republican Party, but it's more about the fact that they feel she's essentially has lied to the Maine voters, because she said that she would do certain things with regard to, we go back to Kavanaugh, and even when it comes to Trump, and she hasn't delivered. And the other side of it is, with the economy being in the straits that it's in, and how Maine is, for lack of better words, a kind of working person's economy based on how they've described themselves, that she hasn't delivered for those people that have voted for, and that this is finally the time. So my fingers are crossed. I don't know if that's going to do anything, but certainly talking about it and bringing it to the table with our show. We'll do what we can to help Troy Jackson in this movement that seems to be happening in Maine. So there you go. Let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Save big money in your next painting project now at Menards. Rust-Oleum Stops Rust 5-in-1 spray paint lets you choose from 5 unique spray patterns with a twist of the dial, so you can get a professional, corrosion-resistant finish on every project. Save big money on Rust-Oleum spray paint now at Menards. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
The best words to hear at the TSA security checkpoint? You're good to go. So check before you jet. Avoid delays at TSA security checkpoints by making sure you have an acceptable form of ID. That means a real ID, passport, or other acceptable forms of identification.
Visit tsa.gov/ID to check the full list of acceptable IDs. Avoid travel delays by checking ID requirements, and you're good to go.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. A couple of quick Choose Views news items on this July 23rd, 2026. America's fastest growing cities for jobs and talent. Augusta, Georgia, has taken the top spot according to LinkedIn's database ranking of the fastest growing U.S. metros for jobs and talent. The list measures year-over-year growth in professional migration, hiring, and job postings to surface the cities outside larger hubs where momentum continues to grow. Number 1 is Augusta, Georgia, expanding cybersecurity and defense corridor. And number 12 is Albany, New York's dominance in the semiconductor research and development. Apple is to revamp its entire Mac lineup with an eye on AI. Apple will be revamping its entire Mac lineup, including laptops, desktops, in response to a growing demand for more powerful computing during this AI boom, according to Bloomberg. The refreshed, quote, models, which include a revamped 14-inch MacBook Pro, will start to debut this fall. Higher-end MacBooks with a touchscreen and an OLED display follow later this year and into early 2027. The new MacBook Airs and the redesigned MacBook Pro are also in development. So for those of you who are Apple and Mac folks, just pay attention because you know they're going to probably bump the price a little bit on you too. Paramount, right, Henry? Paramount-Warner merger is approved by the EU with some conditions. The Skydance merger with Warner Brothers Discovery won approval from the European Union regulators yesterday. The green light came with conditions, however, as Paramount agreed to end its joint venture distribution deal with Universal Pictures in Europe. Positive news coincides with the mega deal facing uncertainty here in the U.S. earlier this week, as a federal judge blocked the studio from closing the deal for at least 14 days, while the court considers a legal challenge from 12 state attorneys general. And the U.S. sets plans for 100% tariffs on generic drugs from 2028. That'll be slapped on imported generic drugs if manufacturers don't shift production to the United States. Trump said in a social media post late Tuesday, the tariff could double to 200% the following year. Bloomberg notes that the levies, if are implemented, would upend supply chains and keep medication costs lower for millions of Americans. Ultimately, steep tariffs would likely raise drug prices and limit U.S. supplies. And we've already seen signs of that happening. Taco Bell is wooing customers spooked by the parasites with $1 items. They'd like to have you back in the stores, and they're willing to hold the lettuce. Sales have tanked since the chain was linked to a parasite that has sickened thousands. It's now offering dinners diners with lettuce-free stuffed tortillas and nacho fries for $1 a piece. So there you go. And then last but not least, 2026 retirees could incur health care costs in the range of $185,000. Baby boomers set to retire this year are expected to shoulder higher health care costs, according to Fidelity Investments. The financial service company estimates that a 65-year-old retiring in 2026 could spend an average of $185,500 on medical expenses in their golden years, which is a 7.5% increase from 2025. Research indicates the surge is linked to rising healthcare costs and chronic conditions. Per Fidelity, 54% of working-age people wrongly assume that Medicare will cover all of their healthcare expenses once they retire. The other reason that those prices, that service and services and care are going up is because of medical supply equipment is more expensive now because of what, Mike? Tariffs. Who do we hold responsible for that? The Orange Menace. So there you go, guys. A couple of quick Choose Views news items on this July 23rd, 2026. Today on Live, Local and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls and talking to media watchers Mark Jacob and Jennifer Schulze. Brian Tyler Cohen, author of the book The Day After, How to Wield Power in a Post-Trump World, and Robert Pape, professor of political science at the University of Chicago. Live, Local and Progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. And then driving it home tonight, Patty will be talking with Mitchell Berman, candidate for Congress in the 1st Congressional District of Wisconsin, and more. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, tune in, YouTube, and Facebook. And then tomorrow on Choose Views, I'll be joined by Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, weekdays 5 a.m. here on WCPT. And Karen Byrne of True Blue Politics Podcast, Sean Pierce, and Jody Hamilton of the Politics Bar, now airing weeknights 7 to 9 here on WCPT. And Richard Carlbaum, the chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farm Labor Party, also known as the DFL. So, lots going on. Check us out. Check out all of our shows. Make sure you are landing your plane, your dial, your whatever you use right here at WCPT, heartlandsignal.com. All right. Today's segment of Something to Chew On. And I'll ask the question, a different question than our question about the Maine Senate race, but another question. Is there a cover-up in the actual deaths and injuries that have been sustained by our military servicemen and women when it comes to the war in Iran? I watched a segment yesterday on MS Now where they were talking about the service in terms of the men and women who were killed and, bringing them home. And led me to do a little bit of thinking, and I reached out to actually someone that's been on our show before, Ahmed Baba. And we're talking about this from the perspective of what are we not hearing? I said yesterday that one of the things that's, if Hegseth were prepared to really ask for this money and be ready to get it, it would seem to me he would have been prepared with numbers and specifics and all the things that, if you're making a proposal to some group or individual, you have all that stuff ready. There was no sign of that. And the conversation that keeps coming back is how many people who've been injured do we not know about? Because we know that one of the reasons that, when you don't get permission from Congress to go to war, then you don't get permission. You don't have things in order that are required by Congress to stay in the war. And one of those is casualty reporting. And according to The Intercept, they revealed that the Department of Defense withheld data on dozens of military injuries that have been sustained during the strikes in Jordan. In addition to that, there's been altered casualty numbers. Investigations found that hundreds of wounded or ill personnel were missing from the Defense Casualty Analysis System, DCAS. And the official tally was once adjusted downward by 15 casualties without public explanation. So does that then lead us to think that there may be a cover-up of the U.S. service member deaths? Obviously, the Pentagon has faced criticism and intense scrutiny for underreporting and potentially withholding and or shifting the data from the overall troop casualties. Independent media analysis estimates the total U.S. casualties dead and wounded is closer to 750 versus the 18 that have died and the projected 14. I'm sorry, the 18 that have died and the projected 450 injuries. That's a big difference. So the difference between that 450 and 750 is 300. How many of those are not just injuries, but those are folks that have those are actually casualties? I think that the country has to ask this question. And I think that the next time that there is a Senate hearing, or there should just be another Senate hearing to drag those officials back in and ask them for real numbers and proof and evidence that those numbers that they're presenting to us are accurate and that they're not. I mean, I will tell you this, and I'll say this and we'll go to the break. If it's found for any reason whatsoever, bad reporting, bad software, that are legitimate mistakes, or if there's some cooking of the books, to use an old phrase, those people need to be drained and quartered in our military hierarchy. And if that goes up the chain of command to the White House, those folks are included. I will tell you this, I rarely go here, and I'm taking the gloves off on this one. If we find out that our Department of Defense has cooked the books on the injuries and or the deaths in this war, you'll hear me say some things that I normally won't say on this show about what I think about should happen to those people. I'll stay within the confines of what I can say because I'll, use appropriate vocabulary. But trust me, I won't hold back. If we find out that this early reporting is accurate, we send our men and women to war. These SO, preach about taking care of the troops, and Hex gets up there all sweaty and mad saying that the Democrats are the ones that don't want to provide additional funding for our troops, but yet you're lying about the numbers. Oh boy, Pete, better not have a situation you're walking down the streets of Chicago when Rico and I are in shouldering up. It might be a problem. Check out Ahmad Baba's news report on this to get more information. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. When I come back, we'll be hanging out with my good friend Rico Mowatt and our guest, Emily Williams. We'll be right back.
This is WCPT telling you how you can shop blue. The owners of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, Magnum Ice Cream Company, is currently silencing them. Now, why would they silence Ben & Jerry's? Oh yeah, that's right, because they were speaking negatively about the Trump administration and even prevented the company from releasing a flavor titled Peace in Gaza. Ben Cohen, the co-founder of Ben & Jerry's, has started a hashtag Free Ben & Jerry's to get their rights to speech back. Magnum Ice Cream Company owns several brands. So instead of talking about the brands that they own, let's talk about some ice cream companies that they don't own that are all for free speech. Johnny Pops, Dove Ice Cream, Tillamook, Häagen-Dazs. And for those of you who prefer frozen yogurt, Stonyfield. And if you still want to give Ben & Jerry's a chance, that's up to you. But make sure you only buy Ben & Jerry's and none of the other brands owned by Magnum Ice Cream Company. So maybe, just maybe, then they'll realize that people like their ice cream without a side of fashion. This has been WCPT telling you how you can shop blue.
Tell me how you're doing, really. Tell me that you missed the bus this morning, your rent's past due, and your stress level has skyrocketed. I'm here for you, to listen, not judge, to connect you to local mental health resources. No matter what you're going through, specialists like me from NAMI Chicago Helpline are here for you. Call or text Helpline to 833-626-4244. That's 833-626-4244.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high in the upper 70s. Winds out of the southeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 62. By Friday, partial sunshine, a high of 82 degrees. Saturday, partly sunny skies, a high around 84. Sunday, we'll see some sunshine, high of 91 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 59.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you were just turning in, I am Richard Chu, and I appreciate everybody being with us this morning. As I said earlier in the show, my good friend Rico Mowatt is hanging out with me this morning in studio. Glad you can be with us.
Elated to be here.
That's right, elated. What a good word. And in that greatness and elatedness that we have a new guest to the show, someone that recently became part of my universe of super cool people that are doing great stuff. Making sure that we keep people informed when it comes to really a specific item that has been important to me in recent weeks and so many other people, and that's voting. It's a big A deal, as the former president would allude to every now and again. But also, our guest, Emily Williams, is one of the leading voices when it comes to racial justice, gender equity in the country. And so I want to welcome Emily to the show. Good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Glad. Well, you know, we won't treat you too poorly this morning. We'll try to, drive down the road with a little bit of respect. But Emily, take a moment and just let our audience know a little bit about you, about your background, and the work that you're doing, and then we'll get into a couple of questions around some of the things that you are working on.
Yep, sounds great. Well, I am the host and creator of the Beyond Voting podcast. On the podcast, we talk about everything in addition to voting that we must do to have the democracy that we deserve. And all of that, everything I bring to that podcast is based on more than 15 years of doing social justice education work at colleges and universities, also doing labor and human rights advocacy globally. So we bring all of that to the podcast to really understand what's happening in this current moment, and to educate our listeners about our democracy and how we can actually protect it.
What's I guess if I say it, the biggest singular thing that you are hearing from people with regard to voting? What is the thing that when you have conversations, when you interview people, when you get text messages or email messages that you're hearing? And maybe there's 2 or 3 things that you can sort of break down for us.
Yeah, well, number one, voting is the baseline in a democracy. I mean, that is the cornerstone of a democracy. We have to be able to exercise our voices in that fundamental way, which our nation counts, every 2 years, every 4 years. So that would be number one, that actually voting is a non-negotiable. But number two, that we can't only rely on voting and expect to have the democracy we deserve, because as we see right now, if we only rely on voting, then it's subject to manipulation, and our elected officials have leeway to do many more things that could potentially have a negative impact on our lives, and we don't have a voice into that. So we also have to be engaged beyond the ballot box. And then three, the main thing that I'm hearing is that people are overwhelmed, not sure how to understand this current moment, not sure how to maintain their own personal mental health and well-being while also staying up to date with what's unfolding in our democracy.
What do you think when you go back to your second item? Why do you think that people are feeling that way about this conundrum that we're in? I guess you could put it that way.
Why do they feel as though our democracy is being tampered with?
What are you hearing? What's their real like? Here's why I'm feeling this way, or here's where this is coming from. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are well aware that there has been attacks on our rights. You know, we could look at the attack on the Voters' Rights Act. We could look at that the SAVE Act just passed the House yesterday. And I think, you know, even this conversation about the 2020 elections and calling the results into question, I think people know that is that those are attempts to take away the rights of the vast majority of Americans.
Yeah, one of the things that's been a conversation that everybody's having as it relates to taking away is this, I guess I'll put two words together, suppression and depression. And the depression attempt by the folks on the right, certainly not the folks on the left, it's just calling it as it is in trying to intimidate, trying to make people feel like their vote doesn't matter, and trying to make people feel like their vote, even if it's cast, is not going to be counted. So there's a depression and suppression attempt, and we're not even there yet to the day or the week leading up to this a vaunted midterm election. What are you hearing from people in that space in terms of the depression and or suppression attempts before we even get to the voting day or the voting week?
Right. Well, I mean, you know, voters are well aware of what their daily realities are like. I mean, things are much more difficult for the average American than they were this time 3 years ago. And people know that. You know, not to mention that this president is wildly unpopular. And so people are making that connection that inflation is high. It is difficult to meet everyone's daily needs. People are not pleased with the policies coming out of this administration. They're seeing people be, rounded up on the streets, people who they know and love. And so, most Americans think, okay, I'm going to make my voice heard in November during the elections. But then they hear coming out of the White House and other places that, all of these challenges to the way that we've done voting in this country for a very long time. And so I think it's both people's daily realities, which is probably contributing to that depression, and then understanding that, the president knows very well that he's wildly unpopular right now. And so they can make the connection to his attempts to suppress the vote in a variety of ways.
Do you think that there's any substance or potential truth to this idea that the administration is going to, try to unleash ICE at the polls when we get closer to the voting week? I've stated my opinion on that a number of times, but what are your thoughts when it comes to that conversation?
I think we can't put anything past this administration. And I think the amount of resources that they have put into ICE certainly would indicate that they intend to deploy ICE in any way to protect their administration. Not to mention, the comments by Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller last week, where they talked about, cracking down on the far left on Antifa.
Yeah, we got to add Mark Wayne Mullen. We can't leave him out of that. Sorry, I'm not correcting you, Emily, but these three, henchmen were. Yeah, and I spoke about that. Marco, Stephen, and Mark Wayne. Three bands of idiots that were just like, yeah, if you don't agree with us, if you say something that you, Rico, and Emily say something that we don't like about the color of the sky.
Three Stooges.
No, not the Three Stooges, because we love the Three Stooges.
True.
The Three Stooges are a down group of guys, but these three, awful ones. I had to catch myself, Emily, because it's live radio, even though we're streaming. But I have other words to describe them. When I heard that, I'm like, so basically anybody that is not agreeing with you on virtually anything when it comes to protesting what this administration is doing, whether it be on voting, whether it be on the budget, whether it be on the war or anything, they're going to carpet bomb them essentially politically and try to legally box them into being part of, terrorist groups or folks that are threatening humanity. That that's insanity. It just is.
Yeah, it's insanity. It's extreme, and it could potentially be very violent. And I think that that's also paving the way to crack down on these groups who are actually upholding the integrity of elections or who are fighting to uphold the integrity of elections. And so it is certainly extreme. And, again, we just can't put anything past this administration. It's frightening in ways because so many of us take for granted that we can speak out, that we can share our views, that we can disagree with what the administration is doing. And, if they are able to really weaponize policies like the Domestic Terrorism Act, that will certainly diminish democratic space in this country. I mean, certainly people will stop speaking out. People will stop going to protest, right?
Yeah.
And so it is insane. It is crazy. And they are, I believe, working very hard to make it happen.
Without a doubt. Guys, let's take a little bit of a break. When we come back, I know that Rico will have a couple questions for you. We'll talk a little bit about some more civic engagement and some of the work that you're doing in the global advocacy space, Emily. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Let's be honest. The National Symphony may not be in his future, but he wanted to try violin. So you said yes because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more about keeping your kids safe in your vehicle at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Show him you love him. Keep him safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Babes, what are you doing?
What? I'm just mowing the lawn.
No, it's blazing hot and dry out here. Don't you remember? Smokey Bear says,
avoid using power equipment when it's windy or dry.
Where'd you learn this?
Oh, it's on
SmokeyBear.com with many other wildfire prevention tips.
Right. Thanks, honey bear.
Because remember, only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Rico. Suave.
That's my man Henry bringing back his DJ days from college and all of the rest with a little bit of tribute to our good friend Rico Mowatt, Rico Suave. With us this morning, of course, is my good friend Rico Mowatt sitting in to help me drive the car down the street and pick up our good friend Emily Williams, who is the host of Beyond Voting and a Webby Award-winning podcast host. Emily, we got a few more questions for you in this space of voting, but also in the bigger picture around democracy and women's rights. Rico.
Yeah. So one question I had for you, Emily, I know you, and I love the platform, and I love the mission, especially when you talk about in addition to voting. What's the one thing that you feel like voters and people in this country really need to look at in adjacent to voting? You know, what's that, like that roadmap? I voted, now what? Or before, like, you can even talk about the before the vote is cast, and then after I cast the vote, what do I do instead of just like waiting for the pot to boil? What are some of the next steps that, you know, voters can take after they've gone to the polls?
Yeah, absolutely, Rico. Great question, and thank you. You know, number one, people have to stay informed. People have to stay up to date. You know, our job is not done just because we voted. That's actually the beginning of the work. We have to hold our elected officials accountable, right? We have to understand what they're doing in office, what we put them there to do. We have to hold them accountable to doing that. And we also have to stay organized. I mean, so many communities have the answers to the problems that they experience, or they have the vision for the future that that we deserve, right? That could be so much better than our current reality in this country. And so voters need to hold themselves accountable also to making that happen. And so we have to stay organized in our communities. And I'm sure listeners have heard, you know, this notion that you have to know your neighbors. Absolutely. And we have to be talking to them about what's happening in our government, what's happening in our societies. And we have to take it upon ourselves to do our part.
Oh, that's a great answer. And the one thing that you touched upon, which I think is so critical, is staying informed. And the toughest thing is right now we're in a media deluge where it comes to information, whether you get your information from social media, whether you go to media outlets, which are now, you know, obviously news is corporatized, if that's a word. I made it up. But it's one of those dynamics where how do people stay informed? And where's the neutrality in seeking out that information? Because, you know, I even myself find that there's just so much, and it's really leaning in certain directions, and I don't know how neutral the information is that I'm getting.
And I think to ride along with that, Emily, is, you know, the factual part of it.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, yeah. We're not in a media neutral environment at all. You know, number one, the majority of Americans, and particularly Gen Z, gets their news from social media. And we know that social media skews toward the far right politically. You know, 9 out of 10 political podcasts are led by creators who identify with the far right, for example. Right. So that's a problem. That's why projects like Beyond Voting are so important, because we balance out that spectrum a bit and put forward more impartial information, or information that balances out that far right leaning. Also, you know, these massive media mergers and takeovers have also hugely skewed even the kind of information that we're seeing. I mean, you know, Venezuela just experienced 2 massive earthquakes. And when's the last time you heard about that on the nightly news?
Yep. That's right.
It's been a while, right?
It's been a minute.
So we're not getting as much global global news. We're not even getting a lot of coverage around, you know, climate change and weather disasters that have been happening more frequently. And so all of this underscores a political agenda of the administration and of the far right. And so it's tough. So we have to support more independent media. There are people who are out here who are doing good work. And so it is incumbent upon us to find those folks and to prop them up, because we're not going to be able to rely on mainstream media in the ways that we have in the past. We're not going to be able to rely on local newspapers the way that we have in the past, right? And so, in many ways, this is something that we haven't really dealt with in the past. And so we do have to find our independent creators. We have to be looking for what are their sources, how balanced are their perspectives, right? How are their perspectives formed? And what's the actual content of what they're sharing?
Yeah, two things came to mind, both of you guys, when you were talking about what's not being covered, Emily. I'll give you an example. There's a woman who is an attorney. Her name is Kate Lincoln Goldfinch. She's been on my show a number of times. She's an immigration attorney down in Austin, Texas. A real player. I mean, she gets it done. And she was on about 6 weeks ago, and I was talking to her about what's happening with immigration and where we are. And she said, Richard, there's just as many things happening now. And I think this is back in April when she first brought this to us, and we talked a couple weeks ago again, where she said, Emily, it's still happening. All these things that happen, the numbers are actually up. We just don't know about it. And she said, and it's largely because the media, corporate media, is not covering it. So my question then goes to, so why are they not? Well, obviously, if we have a consolidation of media on a corporate level, they want to constrain and control the message and what is inside of the message. And with ICE, one of the big reasons that we all get additionally involved back at the beginning of the year, in the first 2 years with these 2 murders or 3 murders, is because the media covered it. We saw it.
We saw it.
And then, we said we got to be even more activated than we thought. Fast forward to here we are now, the last 60 days or so, we've heard less about things that are going on. But what happened? 2 more people get shot, it becomes news, and people are re-engaged. So to tie that all to what Rico was saying about, where do we get and what are our checks and balances? I agree with you. The people who have propped up and become more active with independent media, doing more podcasts and all those things, maybe we, need to have a better filter or a broader filter for some of the things. But I will say this, those voices that are out there, those people that are talking about things are important because they are breaking through. They're breaking through what corporate media is not doing right now, because corporate media's hands are tied, 1, by the consolidations, and 2, by a White House that doesn't want corporate media to talk about the things that are going on. That's your thoughts there, Emily.
Well, absolutely. That analysis is correct. And this is, again, another attack on our democracy, right? I mean, we're seeing the decline of the freedom of the press, right? Yeah. How many journalists have been, pushed out of their roles, out of their jobs, out of the mainstream. And so we no longer have those critical voices who were, really informing people's perspectives and views and understanding of what's unfolding in government. And so that's, it is all part of an intentional attack on democracy. And I wish more people understood how important a free press really is, to actually report on the news as it happens, to report who's responsible, to report what's happening in real time.
Yeah. You and I were at an event last Thursday, Emily, and I'm drawing a blank on the woman, Miss Hart. I can't think of her first name. That was
Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia Hart. That was in. She, along with Don Lemon, were arrested.
Yep.
Doing their job, reporting on what was taking place at the church, et cetera. We all should know the story by now. But she made it really clear, Rico. First of all, it was a great event to be at, but she made it really clear about the importance of independent media, is as hard as it is right now. I mean, she's got a fight on her hands for doing her job. And here's the thing about this. Nobody got hurt or injured. Maybe their egos were bruised, but that was from her doing her job. Mm-hmm. That's at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, that's all it is.
There have been people we've got a White House and an administration that wants to let people out and write them a check for harming people
and storming the Capitol.
But we have which ain't their job.
No.
But we got a woman and a guy doing their job, and they want to put them in prison for.
Well, the one thing I think is really clear is there is this notion of sweeping it under the rug and erasure, where they want to erase history, atrocities, things that have been done, and then also on top of that, they want to sweep other things under the rug, whether it's participants in January 6th or certain histories, African American. It doesn't matter, and that's also what the recent changes or the attempts at the Voting Rights Act is. It's an attempt to sweep things under the rug, and leads me to my next question, Emily. What about these changes to the Voting Rights Act is something that, like, which one scares you the most? Which one is the thing that stands out and you're like, you know what, we're going to put a flag in the sand on this to make sure that, Beyond Voting really trumpets this one thing about the Voting Rights Act that is not just unfair, but also, the biggest threat to democracy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the biggest threat to democracy, I think, with the Voting Rights Act is that, people of color, our voices will be minimized. We still are projected to become the majority very soon. And so that's a problem if we cannot have representation. And so that's number one, right, is that, this democracy is already multiracial. It's multi-ethnic. It's multi-religious. There are people who have there's multiple sexualities and genders, right? And so we need representation if we're going to actually have a thriving democracy. And so I think that's the biggest threat to democracy. What also scares me about it is that they essentially changed the criteria for proving discrimination, racial discrimination. It's no longer impact, it's intent must then be proven, which is much more difficult to prove than impact. And so that not only sets a precedent, for discrimination claims that can be made in other areas, such as the workplace. And so that's also scary. Also, I think we have to see what's going to happen in the midterms, because I know people like Justin Pearson are still running, even though their districts were eliminated. But we've already seen people who are, at least very outspoken, like Jasmine Crockett. She's not going to be with us after the midterms, right? She's already lost her district and her seat. And so I think we have to see what's the impact in November, so that we can take full stock of how, the gutting of the Voters' Rights Act, what impact it actually has on our democracy, and then what we need to do about it. I know people are already active in getting people registered and raising awareness. And, like I mentioned, some people are running despite their districts being eliminated. Right. But we're going to have a much stronger response after we see the full impact in November.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, we know what's coming in part, but we will need some results to say this is how we're going to respond. Emily, thanks for being with us this morning. Real quick as we wrap up, how can folks find you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can listen to the Beyond Voting podcast anywhere you stream podcasts. So that's number one. And number two, you can find me on LinkedIn at Emily R. Williams, and you can find us on Instagram at Beyond Voting Podcast.
Fantastic. Emily R. Williams, a racial justice warrior, hanging out with us this morning. Thanks for being with us. Look forward to having you back in a few weeks. We'll talk a little bit more about all the topics that are in front of us. But thanks for being with us this morning, Emily.
Yes, thank you, too. Thank you, Rico. It was wonderful.
All right. 773-763-9278 is the number you're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. When we get back, we'll be talking with two of Chicago's biggest voices and leaders, Karen Freeman and Jim Reynolds. I'm Richard Chu with Rico Mowatt. We'll be right back.
WCPT 820 listeners, it's time for some girls news. As AI integrates into the workforce, it is creating a digital glass ceiling that heavily impacts women. In high-income countries, 9.6% of jobs held by women are at a high risk of automation by AI, compared to only 3.5% of the jobs that are held by men. Of the 6.1 million employees that would have the hardest time adapting to AI-related job loss, 86% are women. Despite advancement, women hold just 26% of AI-related jobs globally, and 15% are in leadership positions. AI hiring tools and systems themselves are trained on male data, meaning they are more likely to recommend men for higher paying jobs. WCPT 820 listeners, I'm Whitney Rydell, and this is WCPT 820's Girls News.
For the ones who get it done, Grainger offers the professional-grade products you need, delivered when and where you need them. Call and click Grainger.com or just stop by.
NBC News Radio, I'm Michael Kastner. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed an over $1 trillion annual defense policy bill. More from Mark Mayfield.
The 2027 National Defense Authorization Act was passed 216 to 212, with 6 Democrats joining most Republicans to vote in favor. A majority of Democrats did not support the measure, with some citing their opposition to the Iran war and others expressing concerns over a provision that would expand the collaboration between the U.S. and Israeli militaries. The legislation now goes to the Senate.
The U.S. is working to develop Saudi Arabia's nuclear energy program. The U.S. Energy Department announced Wednesday the agreement allows the kingdom to use American technology to build nuclear reactors. It also allows the country to enrich uranium. Tropical storm Bertha is heading to Texas. The National Hurricane Center says Bertha is now about 100 miles southwest of New Orleans and moving toward East Texas with sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. A tropical storm warning is in effect along the coast from the south of New Orleans to just west of Houston. A deadly police shooting is drawing protests in Wisconsin. Police say officers responded to a call near downtown Madison on Wednesday afternoon about a suspect who was reportedly checking car doors and got in a struggle with a man in the middle of a busy intersection when an officer shot and killed him. Police claim the suspect was armed with a knife. Viral videos of the shooting have drawn protests to the intersection, calling for the officer who fired the shots to be arrested. An outdoor concert in downtown Madison had to be canceled last night when protesters took over the stage. Michael Kastner, NBC News Radio.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high in the upper 70s. Winds out of the southeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 62. By Friday, partial sunshine, a high of 82 degrees. Saturday, partly sunny skies, a high around 84. Sunday, we'll see some sunshine, high of 91 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 61.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go, almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff. like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, and thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks to Emily Williams for spending some time with us. Check out her Beyond Voting podcast. It's important right now as never before, and I do mean that. And also to my man Rico Mowatt, who's in studio with me today. I say this oftentimes because I like to give folks their flowers while they are alive. My auntie Lillian told me this when I was 15. Don't wait till folks pass away. And that's become popular in recent years. We have in Chicago some of the best leaders in politics, in social services and social organizations, in business. And with us this morning are two of those folks. I believe we've got both with us this morning, certainly. The CEO, president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League. That's a mover and shaker organization, Rico.
Without question.
Without question. Is Karen Freeman-Wilson. Good morning, Ms. Wilson, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. It's great to join you today, Richard. I appreciate all of the work that you do and, love listening to your show when I get an opportunity.
We're up early in the morning, Ms. Wilson. I know it.
Again, a little bit before my time, I have to tell you.
I've had a number of people say, Chew, I want to be on your show, man, or I want to listen to your show, but I got to catch the podcast a little bit later in the morning because, I'm not awake just yet. And if I am, I'm not paying attention. So, but thank you for those kind words, Ms. Wilson, and thank you for being with us this morning.
I have to apologize going out of the gate. Jim was called away to another matter.
Okay.
So it looks like you just have me this morning.
Well, we're going to take just that, right, Rico? We will. Gladly.
Happily. Gladly.
Do our listeners a favor, because, we broadcast obviously here in Chicago, but we're also in North Carolina, we're in Minnesota, and we stream all over the country. So I make this statement oftentimes, Karen, that is, everything that goes on in a local municipality now is in Chicago, or if it's in Des Moines, Iowa, impacts folks in other communities because of how we are a dotted line society when it comes to policy, when it comes to, and the list goes on. So take a moment and share with our audience who you are and what you do. And then we'll get into some of the meat of the conversation around the Chicago Financial Future Task Force.
Sure. So I'm Karen Freeman-Wilson, President and CEO of the Chicago Urban League. The Urban League is one of the local affiliates for the National Urban League. There are 93, and we are one of the oldest. The National Urban League was established in 1906. We were established in 1916, and so we are 111 years old. And our purpose when we were initially established was to help Blacks who were migrating from the South to Chicago to establish themselves in terms of housing, education, employment, and business. And today we are yet engaged in that same work. We have expanded it to entrepreneurship, to workforce. Certainly we have a leadership practice, one of the premier leadership programs in the city with impact. And we do that through programming, research, policy, and advocacy. Every 2 years, it's coming up in 2027, we publish the State of Black Chicago that really looks at the progress of Blacks in Chicago. But we also partner with organizations that are dedicated to impact, to social justice, to equity. In Chicagoland, we go as far west as Forest Park, and we go as far south as Kankakee.
Wow. So the urban league, this is the question that I really want to ask you. There are other branches throughout the country because of the expanse of our country and the population, and we know that.
Sure.
And obviously, based on population density, they're going to be bigger in the top 10 cities in the country. But is there an organization, another organization, that represents a community with the depth and breadth that the Urban League does in the nation?
Well, because of our programming, and to your point, because of the fact that we have locations and are deeply rooted in many of the communities that have both promise and challenge for Black folks, I'd have to say no.
Okay.
We're in New York, we're in Louisville, we're in many of the large Florida cities, we're certainly in LA. And because of that, and because we're fully staffed in those cities, there are really no organizations that are similarly situated that exist in all of these cities.
Are we growing in the cities that we're in all of the cities, or certainly in the top 10 or 20 cities? Is membership, participation, activation growing, and you're seeing a deeper reach into the community because of the efforts?
We're certainly growing, and it's because of the need. It's certainly because we understand that we have had to expand our offerings. For instance, we're involved in green energy jobs. Mm-hmm. We are involved in job workforce for returning offenders, and we're also involved in helping businesses to accelerate and grow. So it's no longer just startup, but it's helping businesses to grow and become sustainable businesses that they can pass on to the next generation.
And it seems as though with that kind of involvement post-startup, the spread of the value and the reach of the organization's impact just gets better and better as you've really developed the programs to help businesses sustain. One of the biggest things that we hear in the conversation around financial matters for companies is their ability to have access to capital and the strength that provides for a business when they have it, how they can grow exponentially because they have access to capital. How have you and your leadership been at the tip of the spear to make sure that those things are happening?
Well, we have worked very closely with both businesses and the banking community to ensure that businesses are not only capital ready, but that they have access to capital. What do banks want to see? How can we provide more grants even, and then leverage those grants into loans? And businesses understand that they have to be bankable, but they also want a fair shot, fair access to that capital. And so we have worked really hard with both the small business community, but also with the banking community. And there are some banks that have really leaned into this as the economy changes, but as businesses change as well.
Have you seen, and I guess I probably know the answer to this question, but have you seen, or what type of things have you seen as it relates to some of the federal funding that helps to sustain businesses or keep businesses going? Having seen those adjustments take place, whether it be the indirect impact through tariffs and many of the other things that are coming out of the White House, have you seen businesses turn more to you for more help and assistance because of some of those changes in those some of those federal programs?
Well, certainly we have had businesses who have expressed challenges and experienced challenges because of tariffs, because of federal policy that has abruptly changed and said, we're not providing capital for Black and Latino businesses, as an example, for women-owned businesses in other cases. And as a result of that, we have worked very closely with businesses to retool, to look at how they get their supplies more locally, and to just pivot in the face of those unexpected challenges.
Right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive right into this independent task force and the report that you put together, along with Jim Reynolds, and really get into that in the second segment. Let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 here in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm here with my road dog, Rico Mowatt, and we're talking with the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, Karen Freeman-Wilson. We'll be right back.
Instant Kohl's Cash is powerful. You spend $25 and earn $10 Kohl's Cash to use instantly on nearly everything store-wide. So now you're grabbing new shoes and nodding at your receipt like you negotiated the deal. Plus, Kohl's Rewards members earn 3 times rewards. Get instant Kohl's Cash this weekend at Kohl's. Offer valid July 23rd through 26th. Some exclusions apply. Coupons and Kohl's Cash do not apply to Sephora. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Take summer to the next level with the stunning performance of a Porsche. Find the perfect model for you at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our extensive selection, like the 2026 Porsche Cayenne. Right now, lease the 2026 Cayenne for just $1149 a month for 39 months. Discover performance like no other when you visit the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com.
$10,859 to signing for qualified buyers. Excludes tax title license and dealer fee. No security deposit required. See dealer for details. Offer ends 7/31/26.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. I'm Richard Chu. If you're just tuning in, hanging out with my good friend Rico Mowatt, and we're talking with the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, Karen Freeman-Wilson. Miss Karen, talk to us about this wonderful report that you guys put together, how it came about, how it was assigned, I guess is the word I'll use, maybe not completely appropriate word, but how it came about and what have been probably the 2 or 3 key findings that people can take away from the report.
Absolutely. So last May, the Mayor Brandon Johnson, assembled a group of individuals and asked us to do 2 things. The first thing he asked us to do was to look at the city budget on a short-term basis and make recommendations for the 2026 fiscal year. So we were appointed in May of 2025, and we were asked to deliver an interim report in August, which we did, of 2025 that could be used in the 2026 budget. The mayor at the same time said, we need some short-term recommendations, but we also would like you to look at this same issue, understanding that this is not a problem that just happened, that can be corrected with something like a Band-Aid, a short-term approach. And so we want you all to be thoughtful, take some time, and come up with some long-term recommendations. And Jim and I chaired that report or chaired the task force together. People were, there were 23 of us along all types of along the ideological spectrum. And so, you know, you didn't have everyone agreeing.
Right.
And so there was very healthy discussion, debate about the solutions, but there were a number of things. And what I will say is that the final report you will find is not as prescriptive as the interim report, because we were really geared towards what would it take to come up with a long-term fix for the city's budget. And one of the things that we thought was important was to help people understand the challenges and the structural deficit that the city of Chicago faces. There is just a consistent and persistent structural gap that wasn't created by Mayor Johnson, wasn't really created by the mayor before him. It is something that has gone on for decades because of increasing pension liability, increasing long-term debt liability, and just the fact that the revenue that the city has access to, the revenue that funds the city, is not rising at the same rate that costs are rising that the city has to pay to deliver the services that we as residents and we as those who expect certain things from government have come to expect.
Wow.
That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful, but it's that good bite of food that you get, and you sit down and go, "Wow, that was really good, and I need some more of it." You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rico, Henry, Mike, we need more of that, and I'm just so excited to hear you say it that way. You had 23 people in the room, or 23 people part of the task force, and y'all didn't all have to agree, and that's actually a good thing, because that's where you find all the other good stuff that you don't know about. You know this. You've been doing this for a little bit. So you used the word prescriptive. So we take last August, and that I'm thinking of some military terms here: strategic versus tactical.
Yes.
It sounds like the tactical approach was part of the 2025 assessment, and the strategic approach is part of the 26 and beyond. But you couldn't get there without doing something that is so important, and you know this as a leader. You got to look at history to see how did we get here. I think what's happened in terms of the structural issues, and I wasn't part of the task force. I would have probably given my baby finger to be a part of it for the learning. But honestly, I'm sure Rico would have given one too. But to that end, because we love Chicago and we want Chicago to continue to succeed, what was the thing that you took away when you look at the past, the current, and the future that is probably the easiest thing to do or implement if the parties at B want to listen and say, yeah, this is the one this is the first thing we got to do?
Well, I think that to the extent that there are some things that are within the city's control, there are a lot of things that require state action. There are a lot of things that require potentially charter changes for the city. But one thing that we observed is that when we looked at New York, when we looked at LA, when we looked at Houston, the large cities in America, they do something that Chicago doesn't do, and that's really have a plan that costs increased, that the revenue increases on things that people expect to pay for. If there is a large festival, as an example, in the city of New York, in the city of LA or Houston, they require people to pay for those things. And as we benchmarked against those cities, the costs in those cities are often more than the cost in Chicago. And so, you know, I know that we're very civic-minded in the city of Chicago, but we also understand that in order to get many of the bigger events that we have, those who are sponsoring are going to have to pay more. We also understand that in order to address the pension liability, in order to address long-term debt liability, there are changes that we may very well need in the state statute. And so there's going to have to be a partnership with state government. And there's an incentive, quite frankly, for state government to be in partnership with city government. And that is the fact that Chicago represents the economic engine for the state of Illinois. But we also know that there are opportunities to work with county government, to work with other branches of government to ensure that we're not duplicating efforts, to ensure that we're getting economies of scale in a variety of ways. And those were some of the things. And the other thing that was really, really interesting here is that residents just want predictability and they want transparency. If I know that that garbage costs, as an example, $50 a month to pick up my garbage, and that I'm not paying that $50, that in fact I'm paying less than $20 for that garbage. If you say you want me to pay $5 more or even $10 more, I get it. I just want to make sure that I know that everybody's paying. I want to make sure that my garbage is picked up on the south side, just like it's being picked up on the north side. And then I want to know the process of increasing, or, you know, when that increase may occur again. Because again, I'm still not paying what it costs to collect garbage. And that's true for parks. That's true for libraries. That's true for all of the city services, tree trimming, pothole filling. People want predictability. And the more residents understand the dilemma the city is facing, the more inclined they are to
roll up their sleeves and kind of be
and roll up their sleeves
and be part of
understand it. Yes, absolutely.
Karen, there's so much. I knew this was going to happen. There's so much to talk about in this space. And I'm going to put this out here now. We have to have you back, whether it's with Jim. Sorry, Jim, you missed it. You missed out, dude. But we've enjoyed having Karen with us. I want to have you back for all that you bring to the table for the city of Chicago, but for the region as well. People should look you up because they'll see how her resume is longer than your arm, Rico, in terms of the work that she's done. So, but would you be willing to come back in the next few weeks to talk a little bit more about this?
I'd be happy to come back. I think this is important. It's important for our city to move forward, and we are just grateful that the mayor chose us. You know, both Jim and I mean, it was a labor of love, more labor than love sometimes, but it was a great opportunity to understand Chicago's budget and, more importantly, the solutions that are available to address the challenges that we face as a community.
Karen Freeman-Wilson is the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, one of America's best leaders right here in Chicago. That's right, y'all. Thanks for being with us this morning, Karen. We look forward to having you back, and we're going to hold each other to that. We're going to keep digging into this. So thank you so much for being with us. Stay safe today, and we'll talk to you real soon, okay?
Thanks to both of you.
All right. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, WARR down in Warren County, North Carolina, and AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is WCPT telling you that you can shop blue. With the Trump administration making over $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and the ACA, let's take a look at some health insurance companies that support the Democratic Party. CVS Health. CVS Health donated $938,000 to local action committees, sitting in the middle at a 50-50 split on parties they donate to. But with donations from senior leaders and other employees, 64% of their donations went to Democrats. Walgreens donated $316,000 to local action committees in 2024. But it's also a 50-50 split with their political donations. But with their senior leaders and other employees, 70% of Walgreens donations went to Democrats. Blue Cross Blue Shield. In 2024, Blue Cross Blue Shield donated $5 million in political gifts. It was a 50-50 split between both parties, but with senior leaders and other employees' donations, 64% of those donations went to Democrats. This has been WCPT telling you that you can shop blue.
I am often asked, why is it important to have a living trust? The most important reason is control, being able to control where your investment accounts, retirement accounts, and your home go upon your passing. This is Tony Moret. I've been an estate planning lawyer here in the Chicago area for over 35 years. You have probably heard my ads here on WCPT over the last several years, and it has been a privilege to be on their airwaves. The reality is, for most people, their assets will go through a court-supervised process in probate court, which can be expensive and takes many months. Having a living trust will make sure this does not happen. Control of your assets will be handled directly by your trusted family member or friend. I will explain every step of the process to make sure you are comfortable with the plan as we move forward. Please call me at 847-996-0496 to start. There is no fee for the initial consultation and no obligation. Again, my phone is 847-996-0496. I look forward to speaking with you.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high in the upper 70s. Winds out of the southeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 62. By Friday, partial sunshine, a high of 82 degrees. Saturday, partly sunny skies, a high around 84. Sunday, we'll see some sunshine, high of 91 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 63.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu. Thanks to Karen Freeman-Wilson for being with us, who's the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, and one of the most powerful organizations here in Chicago, influential certainly, as well as throughout the rest of the nation. You guys have, that listen to our show anywhere in the country, have seen and heard our next guest before, having been on the show. She is one of those voices that recognizes the importance of making sure that what we're doing in our country is balanced and that everyone's rights are being acknowledged and being kept strong. Karen talked a little bit about this in her own way. Jill Habig is the president and founder of the Public Rights Project, and she's in studio with us. How about that, Rico?
This is awesome.
This is awesome. I know.
Awesome.
Jill,
very exciting for me.
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, I guess you could say, and welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, we were asking before we came on, I said, what the hell are you doing in Chicago? So she kind of told me a little bit. But let's do a quick rewind for folks who this may be their first introduction to you and to company, the organization, I should say, and then let's talk a little bit about what are we all fighting for right now? What do we have our hands on the table to be fighting for? You take it away.
So many things. So just a little bit about Public Rights Project. We are a national legal nonprofit. We help local governments across the country use their legal power to protect and advance civil rights and democracy, which is why we're very busy right now. Yeah. So we work with about 200 cities and counties across the country. We represent them in court on major, civil rights and democracy issues. A lot of lawsuits against the current federal government right now. And then we also work with local election officials, which is very important this year, but also every year, to make sure that they can actually continue to run free and fair elections, despite the threat environment that we're seeing right now, where there's so much coming at them, and they want to continue to be able to do their jobs so that everyone can vote and have their vote counted.
Chicago's a big player in this national conversation. We've had everything thrown at us. This is why we love representing the city with the big shoulders mentality, because we've had a lot thrown at us in this current administration, and we've stood up to it, and we've been in some ways a little bit of a representation and a guidepost for other cities that are being attacked by this federal administration, as has the state of Illinois. What's been your observation on a local level that cities, I won't say can be doing better, but might be able to do differently with the assistance of your organization?
Yeah, so Chicago has actually been one of our longest standing partners since I started the organization in 2017. And they've done a few things that I think are really important. One is just in the context of this administration, they have refused to back down. They have refused to comply and advance. And, we've seen so many examples over the last 18 months of people capitulating on things that if they fought, they could win. We've seen it from law firms, some of our biggest companies in the country, universities. Cities like Chicago have said, no, you actually don't have the power to force me to cooperate with ICE. You don't have the power to invade my city and my residents with the military for no reason. And they've also taken a stand, though, not just on some of the really big Trump administration issues. They filed really innovative lawsuits for years against gun manufacturers, for example, protecting workers. We've worked with them on a number of, workers' rights issues over the years. And so I do think Chicago is really a model for what cities across the country can do when they think about not just how can you pass new ordinances or local policies, how do you enforce them in a way that actually protects residents and makes residents' lives better, and so that people feel protected by the law and not that it's just something on paper that people in City Hall think about.
I remember someone that's near and dear to you making the statement that she was surprised at the capitulation from a number of organizations. She wasn't surprised that the offer was going to be put out there for businesses and institutions and others to acquiesce, but she was surprised at the complicity, and that would be none other than former Vice President Kamala Harris. Talk a little bit about that and your relationship with her.
Yeah, so I've been really honored to work for her at a number of times in my life. I actually worked with her for 4 years in the California Attorney General's office. It's part of the reason I started Public Rights Project, because when I worked for her, I helped start a children's civil rights unit within the California Department of Justice, because she has always been really passionate about the rights of kids and the ways that government and systems have responsibility to kids. And when we fall short on those responsibilities, we can't be surprised when kids fail later if we've set them up to fail. And so I learned a lot from that experience that I'm bringing into Public Rights Project to really help cities and states across the country think about how to use the law more creatively to help people. But I have also been very surprised at the level of capitulation that we've seen, because when you actually look at what's happened with those who have fought, they have, for the most part, won. We're winning most of our cases against the federal government. We're protecting over $20 billion worth of federal funding. the federal government is 0-16 in the lawsuits trying to get the voter rolls from states.
They ain't making it to the playoffs.
No.
That's below the Mendoza line.
That is the epitome. 0-16. It's kind of interesting. We can use that as a number of games in the football season. 0-16. I mean, I knew this, but this is the reason I believe that we have organizations like Jill's and the people that are part of her team, because they know what they're doing.
Yep.
But they're also they're inquisitive enough and intellectually curious enough to say, what do we not know? What are some of our blind spots that are going to help us go into a community and help them find their blind spots so that they can be creative, as you said?
Right. I mean, just thinking about the elections this year, one of the most common questions we actually get from election officials when they call us up to ask us for help is, can they do that? Some variation of that. It's like, do I have to pay attention to this? Is this a memo or is it a law? Right? Like, do I have to actually do something about this ridiculous speech or this press release or this letter, or can I ignore it because this is noise? And so a lot of our job right now is helping election officials and sometimes other cities and things like that navigate claims from this administration to power that they don't have.
Yeah,
and
that leads me to a question I just thought of. What are you hearing from all the different cities that you represent, or sentiment that you might feel that's keeping them up at night? What are they seeing down the road and saying, okay, you know what, this is something that I think we need to pay attention to, or because you're talking about innovation in terms of even the countersuits or the lawsuits that they're filing. What are they doing in anticipation of what's coming down the road?
Yeah. So I think there are two things. One is the threats to federal funding for cities, because cities run on funding. That's taxpayer dollars. This is not some grant of generosity from the federal government. It's our taxpayer dollars that come back to us to serve us. And so this is money for, transportation, airport security, housing and homelessness services, public transit, public health services in communities. And so a lot of cities get 25% or more of their funding from federal money. And so they cannot afford to lose it. And yet the federal government is threatening cities with all sorts of illegal retaliation in order to try to kind of hold federal funding as like a sort of Damocles over their heads. And so that's why we have so many lawsuits on this topic. And that's one area where cities have been really paying attention.
That makes sense.
A lot of the concern, we had on a guest in the earlier segment, Emily Williams, Beyond Voting podcast, and she talked about the same thing in terms of people just feeling a sense of uncertainty, because more specifically about voting as we go forward and to get closer to this midterm. Before we go to a break, address this a little bit as it relates to how we are, or are we prepared legally? We've had a bunch of wins on a number of fronts, but do you see we are prepared? And if not, what are some additional steps that can be taken to be ready legally? It's one thing for a bunch of folks to show up at a poll and say, no, you can't tell our folks that they can't vote. Rico and I could show up with 8 of our best friends, male and female, and push back on those knuckleheads that show up at a voting location. But legally, how do you see us being ready?
I think we are getting ready, and we will be ready. This administration is really pursuing like a spaghetti meets wall strategy to try to interfere with the election.
You got to start saying it that way. I like that.
I'm stealing that from you.
Chuck it up and see what will stick. And it is not working. And that doesn't mean it's not concerning, right? So we're fielding a ton of requests from election officials about, FBI investigations, threats to, investigate elections, obviously the voter roll concerns, ICE deployments and things like that. So there's a lot of work to do. But I think the important thing for people to remember is they don't have power to do a lot of these things, and they are desperately trying to sow doubt and confusion
the depression and the suppression.
Yes, that justify federal interference, and our job is to make sure they can't get away with that.
Yeah, let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm here hanging out with my bestest of buddies, Rico Mowatt, and somebody that really knows what they're talking about, and that is Jill Habig, who's the president and founder of the Public Rights Project. We'll be right back.
Talking to your kids about the dangers of vaping can be hard. Getting them to listen to hot gossip is easy. So here's some drama you could share with your kid. Dude, did you hear about Cassie and Jake? No, but did you hear that vaping can cause irreversible lung damage and nicotine affects brain development? Nuh-uh. You don't need to gossip if you want to have an open conversation about vaping. So if you want to get tips on when and how to talk to your kids, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tim Meadows. You've heard the phrase out with the old and in with the new, right? Well, buckle up because Stand Up to Cancer's vehicle donation program makes it easy to turn your old vehicle into new life-saving cancer research. More than 2 million Americans hear the words, "You have cancer," each year. That's why Stand Up to Cancer is dedicated to funding cancer research focused on finding cures. Donating is easy, pickup is free, and your gift may qualify for a tax deduction. Visit standuptocancer.org/cars to learn more.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you were just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and my good friend Rico Mowatt is here in studio with me, hanging out with Jill Habig, who y'all know by now. She is one of those leading voices, president and founder of the Public Rights Project, and is in Chicago this week doing what she does, which is making sure that local organizations are they have a sense that there is some additional backbone and steel in their spine when it comes to dealing with some of the legal issues in their communities, and most certainly dealing with this downhill push from the federal administration, specifically Trump and his sycophants. Jill, you had something you were going to talk about before when we were in the break that you wanted to dive into.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we were talking about how the administration is putting a lot of shots on goal right now, volume shooting, trying to interfere with the elections. And I think one of the things that it's easy to lose sight of because they have so much bluster when they claim power they don't have is they like to kind of create this air of inevitability. Like you can't, it's like a bully.
We're just going to do it. You have nothing to say.
There's nothing you can do about it, so don't even bother. But we've seen over and over again, this administration retreats when people fight back. You saw it here in Chicago with the National Guard. They retreated when the court said, no, you can't actually just send the military against cities. All the voting roll cases they've lost. In a lot of our funding cases, when they have lost, now cities are drawing down on those funds. The litigation is ongoing. They're still fighting in court. But they are not this sort of inevitable, indefatigable force that they pretend to be. And that's why it's so important that people are fighting back in the courts, at the ballot box, in the streets, because it works.
So what was going through my mind then and listening to you is, okay, more people, we hear the phrase all the time, when there's more of us than there are of them. When we all are involved, we get stuff done. And that's so very true. So my brain went down the path of everybody that's quote on our side and those 89 million people that didn't vote in the last general election need to know that we've had these wins and that they're 0-16. So my question really and thought process, Jill, is really around how is, in your observation, corporate media failing the country when it comes to really talking about what you just said on the other side, which is it's bluster. They're losing. You get my thought.
Well, I think there's a lot of muscle memory that we have to kind of unlearn. And I see this as a lawyer, and we see this with our cities. In normal times, when the FBI is showing up to an election office like they did in Fulton County, or you see, a grand jury has issued an indictment or something like that, we have an assumption that this is legit.
Okay.
Right?
Muscle memory.
That's a
Right.
great point.
Yeah.
And the media is the same thing. When the president of the United States says something, we have decades of muscle memory that, like, that is something we should pay attention to. That is something at least serious. You may agree or disagree, whatever your political persuasion might be, but it is something serious. It's something legit. And that is just not an assumption we can afford to make in this time. We've seen over and over again between the Comey indictments, the Tish James, New York Attorney General indictments, the attempts to kind of go after anyone. We've seen this with our mayors. We have mayors who have now had to start legal defense funds. We have election officials who have had to get criminal defense attorney representation. We cannot afford to just continue to assume, oh, it's the Department of Justice, it's the FBI, it's the president. That must mean we should take it seriously.
Right.
And I think that's just hard to unlearn quickly, but we got to do it fast.
Wow. I hadn't thought of it that way. Muscle memory about what. Yeah. I mean, right. When they, that's such a great way of putting it. When they show up, you tend to think, okay, they're there for a legitimate reason. But there's a lot of people that have said, and I think that this is probably true when it comes to the history of African Americans in this country and other communities of color and women, frankly, that just because it's the government doesn't mean that they're doing the right thing. And never before, and like I said, I hadn't thought of it that way, Jill. So thank you. Have we seen it like we're seeing it right now?
Yeah, there's a certain level of pessimism that is now kind of entrenched in everyone's kind of political medulla oblongata in terms of how people are looking at stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point. It is unlearned because so much stuff is not presidential, is apolitical in terms of how they're moving and what they're doing, from retaliation to obviously suppression, and that's a great kind of analysis.
Well, I think it makes the job of the local officials we work with even harder because they are in government. They are trying to prove to their own residents, government actually can work for you. I am trying to deliver for you. And they have other people trying to make it even harder to convince people that could even be possible, that the project of democracy, of self-government, of people power is even possible. And so I think that's part of why the litigation and the work that we're trying to do to organize cities to speak collectively and act collectively is so important. It's not just about defeating this particular illegal action or that particular abuse of power. It's also trying to show an alternative vision to the public of, like, no, you can actually elect people who will have your back, who take their jobs seriously. And that's what we're trying to do.
Is there a sense that but in different local communities that you go to, that and how do I want to put this? Some communities are at a different point on the scale of what's happening to them.
Yeah.
So what is it that is sort of your universal message that, for lack of better words and not to sound too pie in the sky, that we're going to be all right?
Yeah, I think the general message that we talk with our cities about is be concerned but not panicked. And I think that's the message for the general public, for all of us too, right? None of this is normal. We should not treat it as normal, but that doesn't mean that we are powerless. And you'd be surprised, even, we work with a number of cities in places where they're getting pressure not just from the federal government, but also their states. And they are continuing to stand up and show up in court to fight back.
Is that a situation, I mean, to get some clarification? So I'm going to run this out. The state may be run by those who are on the right, just to call it as it is, but you've got a blue city in that state that's catching hell from the federal government and from the state government.
Right. And I don't even think it's as simple as blue and red, because there are a number of Republican governors or other officials who are not aligned with this administration, or at least not aligned with the lawlessness of this administration. But when you have states that are, kind of MAGA aligned, cities like Nashville, Tennessee, for example, one of our most active partners. They've joined a number of our cases trying to protect public health funding, domestic violence funding, those sorts of things. Columbus, Ohio is another example. Kansas City. You know, there are cities that are still willing to stand up even despite the risks. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, that we can all stand together. It's hard when we're isolated, but if we act collectively and stand together, we have a chance and we can fight back.
Yeah, that's always a question, because we hear the I guess the political phrase of a blue dot and a red, you know, whatever the jurisdiction is. Are you, from a growth standpoint, and I always think of this from, you know, my business hat comes on, how is the organization growing and reaching more people and bringing in more attorneys to be able to have more impact throughout the country?
Yeah, we're seeing just tremendous demand from cities and counties for our services, particularly given the election year and the needs of election officials. We're serving probably about 250 election officials this year across more than 10 states, making sure that they are prepared for any federal interference, but also making sure that they're just prepared to run the nuts and bolts of their election. So, you know, there's been third-party interference, not just the federal government, from election denier groups and things like that. And then they also have to control for, you know, human error and natural disaster, right? A power outage at a polling place that makes the line really long, a bomb threat, those kinds of things. And so we have to be ready to help make sure that if there's a challenge to a bunch of absentee ballots, for example, this happened in Pennsylvania last cycle, where there's a, you know, really tight race and there's a question about a bulk of, you know, 50 absentee ballots. They need quick legal analysis to help make sure they can count those ballots legally. And if there's any, you know, justifiable reason to count them, they don't want to disenfranchise voters. So that's the kind of thing that we're ready to deploy to serve election officials across the country. So we've doubled our team over the last couple of years.
Wow. I love deployment. I love that word. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. You all don't even see this in the studio because it's below the table, but Rico has on kind of camouflage pants.
I can't prepare for battle.
Deploy peacefully.
Yeah, peacefully.
Legally.
Peacefully, legally.
With lawyers.
With lawyers. I know them. Yeah, it's just, but I'm you gotta be fired up. Yeah. I'm fired up.
But this is the part of what I believe is one of our strengths. Rico and I joke around about this a lot in terms of our superpower. I think one of our superpowers is we have more than just one as a community. Is what something that you said earlier and something that Emily said earlier in the earlier segment is the we part of this and the connection part of this, and helping people remember that they have a stake and an opportunity to get something done. It sometimes gets I won't say forgotten, but we do have to daily remind ourselves of that because of the 0 and 16. I mean, that's a perfect example. We are winning there.
Well, and the fact that the rule of law still prevails. Yeah. And that is you know, the ties that bind that can be implemented and executed that are favorable. So there is stuff that can be done on grassroots level, and you know, people always, what can I do? I'm so helpless. No, the rule of law still applies.
And we've seen that even from within our network. So I'll give you an example. You know, Chicago's used to doing large-scale litigation over the last several years on a variety of issues like we talked about. A lot of other cities and counties are not used to this kind of litigation. King County, Washington, for example, where Seattle is, that's obviously a big county. They have not had a big litigation team of lawyers.
Wow.
They have stepped up last year. They are now leading our largest case against the federal government. There are 75 cities and counties in that coalition. They are leading that case to protect public health, transportation, and housing funding. And so people are stepping up out of their comfort zones to lead because the moment demands it. And that's just something we can all learn in our own lives, too.
Absolutely. Jill, how can folks find you as we wrap up today?
We'd love to stay in touch. Go to publicrightsproject.org. You can learn more about us, sign up for our newsletter, obviously donate if you feel so inclined. We're very grateful. But yeah, keep in touch with us.
Absolutely. Jill, thanks for being with us. Rico, as always, Rico's going to be hanging out with us the next couple of Thursdays, guys. So get yourselves ready. Have your notepads ready. But as always, thanks to all of you guys who have been listening today all over the country. Thanks to Karen Freeman from the Chicago Urban League. Thanks to Emily Williams for being with us. And thanks to you guys. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And as I always say, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
A loved one owns a gun, and for a while now, you've been concerned about their behavior. They're just not acting like themselves. They've been distant, they've been unpredictable, they've been lashing out. They've been saying things that make you worried they might harm themselves or friends or family. Or you're worried this loved one might hurt you. Maybe they recently threatened someone with their gun. You know something needs to be done, and you wish more than anything you could hit pause on this situation. Well, here in Illinois, you can, with a firearm restraining order. In extreme cases, this order temporarily prevents a person in crisis from having a firearm, giving them time to heal before they do something dangerous or even deadly. If you are worried about a loved one in crisis who has access to a firearm, learn more about firearm restraining orders at illinois.gov/pause to heal. A public service announcement brought to you by the Illinois Department of Public Health, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Computers are a wonderful tool, but every day children are sexually solicited online. Protect your kids online. Visit cybertipline.com. Help delete online predators. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Amazon Business. Discover smart business buying, where unmatched selection meets AI-driven tools to simplify complex processes so you can focus on what matters most. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels say they've attacked 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea. President Trump has threatened major military punishment if Yemen's Houthis keep attacking ships. Kuwait's military says drones attacked its border crossing with Iraq, causing damage but no casualties. The country did not say who was behind today's attack on the Abdali crossing, but Iran has launched repeated attacks on Kuwait since hostilities with the U.S. reignited last month. The House has passed a $95 billion package to fund the war with Iran and other White House priorities. Speaker Mike Johnson pushed the proposal despite objections from Democrats and a few Republicans. The package includes funding for the Pentagon and other national security needs, aid for farmers struggling under President Trump's tariffs, and $10 billion for voting law changes. It now heads to the Senate. An autopsy commissioned by the family of Nolan Wells leaves more questions about what happened to the black teenager left behind during a boat trip. The AP's Jennifer King reports.
Attorney Ben Crump says an independent autopsy of Nolan Xavier Wells finds his cause of death undetermined pending further investigation. The Mississippi teenager went missing after a July 4th boat trip, and his body was found floating near Horn Island 2 days later. The report showed no evidence of fractures or deep tissue injuries, but non-accidental factors could not be ruled out.
A red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region, is significant.
Wells' body arrived with organs and neck structures removed due to the initial autopsy.
The reason he said he would hold it back when he was medical examiner because he thought that there may have been some issues with neck fractures.
I'm Jennifer King.
This is AP News.
AP Sports, I'm Mike Hempen. The Red Sox matched a club record set 80 years ago with their 15th straight win Wednesday, a 6-3 win over Baltimore in the first game of a doubleheader. But the Orioles ended the streak with a 5-1 win in the nightcap. Red Sox manager Chad Tracy says it's time to move on.
That's behind us, and the big thing is if we continue to play baseball that way, regardless of how many wins in a row, we're going to win a heck of a lot more than we lose.
Major League Baseball is cracking down on Jose Caballero's batting routine, saying it amounts to deception. MLB told umpires Wednesday to enforce pitch clock violations against Caballero, leading to a strikeout and the ejection of the Yankees hitting coach during a game against the Pirates. WNBA, the Fever beat the Sun 123-88, setting a franchise record for points in a game. Caitlin Clark, 27 points, 11 assists. I'm Mike Hempen, AP Sports.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high in the upper 70s. Winds out of the southeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 62. By Friday, partial sunshine, a high of 82 degrees. Saturday, partly sunny skies, a high around 84. Sunday, we'll see some sunshine, high of 91 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 63.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Homeowners, is your upper floor too hot in the summer? Are energy bills climbing with every degree? Green Attic can help. With over 15 years of experience and more than 1,000 five-star reviews, Green Attic is a trusted name in Chicagoland for insulation, ventilation, and roofing solutions that make homes more comfortable and energy efficient. They specialize in attic insulation, spray foam, crawl space encapsulation, mold remediation, and solar attic fan installation, all designed to keep your home cooler and improve indoor air quality during the warmer months. Green Attic also offers full-service roofing through Green Attic Roofing, from roof repairs and replacements to flat roofs, commercial roofing, and solar panel installation. The right insulation and ventilation can lower energy use, reduce strain on your HVAC system, and help maintain more consistent temperatures throughout your home. Green Attic backs its work with the industry's only 10-year labor warranty. Schedule your free insulation consultation at greenattic.com or get an instant roofing estimate at greenatticroofing.com. Green Attic, healthy home, happy family.
You know, one of the best parts of summer around here is Fair Week, and it's almost here. The 2026 McHenry County Fair returns to Woodstock August 4th through the 9th, and they've packed the week with something for everyone. Whether you're cheering on the action at the Next Level Bull Riding Rodeo, catching the horsepower at the tractor and truck pulls, watching the quad racing, or waiting for the Demolition Derby, there's never a dull moment. And when the grandstand lights go down, stick around for live performances from country favorite Alex Miller and the always entertaining Feudin' Hillbillies. Of course, it wouldn't be the fair without carnival rides, mouth-watering fair food, livestock exhibits, local vendors, and all those traditions you look forward to every summer. On Friday, August 7th, you can meet me, Patty Vasquez, from 5 to 7 p.m. as we broadcast live at the fair. So grab your family, your friends, and make some memories at the 2026 McHenry County Fair, August 4th through the 9th. Get your tickets and see the full schedule today at McHenryCountyFair.com.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.